games are constructed like an onion out of different shells that are within each other. And on the top shell, like the outside world, is the meta game.
I'm very honored to introduce you to my dear friend and colleague, Volker Hirsch. He is owner and CEO at TryHard Interactive. He is a famous teacher on game design on different educational institutions, as well as a consultant and trainer on game design and serious games. He is an entrepreneur and creative expert, a veteran of video gaming and board games, card games, whatever games you can imagine. And he has an amazing experience of over 30 years in the gaming industry. Welcome, Volker. Great to have you.
Hi, Philip. How are you?
Very good. Very good. So you know why we are here today. So I want to speak with you about games in general, about the trends in gaming, as well as educational games. And my first question would be, what is currently your favorite game and why?
Difficult question, because I play games not for fun mostly, but also just, to get a perspective on specific gaming mechanics. So right now I'm playing lots of narrative games, and there are some really, really good ones out there. I would say one of my favorites is The Return of Obra Dinn. It's a very old school, stylish game where you are an investigator for an insurance company, checking out a boat that came into harbor, and all its 40 passengers or people on board are dead, and you have to find out why.
Yeah, I heard about that one, and it's still on my list, so I also have to play it sooner or later. Yeah, but if we're talking about games, so perhaps it's very interesting also for our pioneers. What defines a game for you in general? So what are the main components of a game? So what is a game?
Well, there are different ways to this, and one of the, I think, most popular definitions is what marks some of the most specific things is there has to be a gamer, like a player, someone who interacts with the game. Then there has to be a conflict always. So there's always some kind of artificial conflict, because it's not real conflict, then it would be not gaming. So it's something out of our real world, actually. And so you interact with something to solve this conflict, and you have to perceive somehow that you are on a progress and there's a win condition, and how you interact is defined by rules. So there's a goal, there's rules, there's a conflict, and there's players, I guess.
Is there also conflict when we're talking about cooperative games, collaborative games?
Yes, always, because there has to be a conflict with the topic then. So because we are gaming as you're solving a puzzle, you're always trying to fix something in one way or the other. So in the end, yes, there always is a conflict. It's like a story.
Okay. Okay, and since you are a game designer and game creator, yeah? So you said there's always a conflict, but if you want to come up with a new game, how do you start really creating a new game? How do you do that?
Well, that's depends a lot on what ideas are attacking you in normal life, or if you are working on a contractual basis. So sometimes you are, it's not your own idea. You're working on a game where the idea is already fixed. So in the end, if you do that, you have a frame set, and with this frame set, basically you start working, and just it's a process that you go through, and that's kind of a design thinking process that usually brings out good products in the end. If you start as from the artistic point of view, of making a game. As an artist, or just a creative designer, then usually what I do is I try to find something that I'm passionate about, some topic that I really like to, work with, because you have to do lots of research and stuff like that, and it's much easier if you like the topic. So that's where I dig in, and I try to find this conflict, or in the end, something that the player is interested in to do. And if I find something I think that's interesting enough, then maybe that's the point to start.
Okay, so but you would do a separation between like something like from a contractual perspective, you have to create this or that game, because you mentioned design thinking, and what we know from design thinking is that you try to put yourself into the shoes of your target group and then designing a product for it. So this on the one hand, and on the other hand, you mentioned that if you are creating games for any other purpose rather than a fixed contractual one, then you think about something that you're passionate about.
Then I'm the target group, yes.
Then you are the target group, okay.
It's the process is about the same, but I'm the target group, and makes a little bit of a difference, especially from the emotional point of view.
Okay, emotions, good word. What kind of a role play emotions in games?
Well, in the end, we are producing emotions. So the product of a game, it's not about who's winning, are we competing with, if we are co-op playing with other people. There are games that usually one of the famous sentences is the end game is not to win the boss fight, but it's friendship. So to bring people together and have fun. And to have fun means you have emotions. Doesn't mean you have to have pleasant emotions. Like there are games out there where you get really angry, or where you are not satisfied with yourself. You are, always you lose a lot, so you have to cope with that. And
gambling, for instance, right?
Yeah. But in the end, it's important that there are desirable emotions in this state, and gambling is something different, but games are usually not for real, in the sense of that you are in this magic circle that's outside of your personal life. It's risk-free. That's one of the main reasons to have these emotions. If you would have the same emotions like in your work life, there might be a little bit of danger, if you are thinking about killing your boss or something like that, or your colleagues. So in this case, it's about trying out, perspectives, roles that you haven't done before, and that are not serious. It's you're just kidding. It's just to pretend to be. So to be doing that, and that means you can live through emotions that are not dangerous to live through, which can then, somehow you can transform this into your real life. If you know how to cope with losing in games, then you can actually get this emotion out of the games into your real life and cope with critique, let's say.
And it's also an interesting aspect or difference that you were mentioning of, like, doing your job, basically doing the job in real life, and then also going through the emotions in a game. So what is it? What happens to a player while he or she is playing a game? What happens? Why are we so addicted to games?
There are different theories also that it's still not 100%. We're not 100% sure what happens, because it's so much related to neuroscience, and we're just getting a grip onto neuroscience. So how noradrenaline is working as waking you up, then the dopamine and then the stimulus, and how you learn. Like if you don't have just recently scientists found out that you have to have a real deep phase of relaxation, sleep, or meditation, so that your brain actually can learn. you don't learn anything if you don't have this time in between. And learning and playing, they're always related. Gaming, learning, it's always one thing. You can't do one without the other. And or let's say gaming is always learning, playing is always learning. And so what are you going through when you play a game is you try to evolve yourself as a player. So you will not play a game that is not challenging you. If you have a solved problem, you're not going to solve it. It's doesn't make any sense. So you only play games where you challenge yourself. If the challenge is done, like if you play a game and you have this challenge and you solved it, then the game is over. Then you are not going to, you won't be interested to play it anymore because your dopamine doesn't work anymore. So that's the state you are in. You're always hungry for more challenge of, usually it's the intellect, but it can also be your skills, your motorical skills, but or your perception skills, or your senses. But in the end, most of the games try to play with your mind in the way that you have small challenges, you get rewarded, you feel good about it, and then you try to solve a goal. You get a checklist or something like it where you say, okay, I've done this, what's the next in the story? And this is how you move on. And your character usually is evolving doing this, getting better. You are conquering a world, you are fixing a world, you are, I don't know, building up a factory, something like this, and it grows. The game grows with you in the end, and that's what as a player you go through, and what motivates you to take the next step.
So interesting. So you spoke about conflict, emotions, player progression in the game. On the one hand, like in the story or in the character's progression, but also the learning that you are doing while playing, basically. Yeah. I would overcoming challenges, getting rewarded for these challenges. I would be interested in, I heard something like a core game loop. Can you tell us what is a core game loop in games?
So usually, sure. So usually games are constructed like an onion out of different shells that are within each other. And on the top shell, like the outside world, is the meta game. That's the big story arc around it. That's also can be what you maybe know of the customer's journey. If you buy products, like you buy a bicycle in a store, you get out of the store and you start thinking about, you present your bicycle, your friend says, oh, that's a fantastic bicycle, but I would have, bought other brakes, different brakes than you have. Okay, why is that? So you learn about it and you go back to the store in the end. And then this big circle is the meta game, and in the core of the game, that's the core gameplay. So the core gameplay is usually there are more than one core gameplays that are interacting with each other or running next to each other, and they define the game loops. So you are constantly doing something and repeating that all the time. It's like if you play a dice game, you roll the dice, it comes up with some number, and then you do something. You move your pawn to another square, and you do something, and then you roll the dice again. So it's rolling dice, moving a pawn. That would be a typical way of a core loop, where you move, you progress in the game by reading a random number from a random number generator, which is the dice in this situation. And you have, with many of these games, like typical card games, they use the trick as a card game, which means you play a card and another player plays another card, and then you see who has the higher card wins the trick, like wins all the cards that in this round were played, and that's it. That's the core loop. But many different games come out of this, so yeah, that would be the core loop, the one core mechanic that keeps on. It's like a cylinder in an engine, you know, that drives the whole thing.
And can games have several core loops, or is
Yes.
this only one per game?
No, more complicated games have lots of core loops, and so it usually depends on how they are interwoven. But like typical games, you know, as Settlers of Catan, they have core loops that are on one thing. You roll the dice, or in the case you go 2 die, and then one of the core the core rules is that with this die you see what you can do, what actions you can do actually in the game. It depends on the die roll, what resources you get. So this is one of the core loops, getting resources. And with these resources, then you can buy something. You can trade it. That's another core loop. Like only the trading between the players would be a core loop.
Mm-hmm.
So usually there are more core loops if the game gets more complex.
Okay. And okay, so it sounds a bit complicated for me. So would I be possible as a total newbie to come up with my own game?
You did already. Everybody did. When you were a child, you did this every day because everything's boring without making a game out of it. So what you usually did when you went to school, just, you know, the pavement, it was boring going to the school bus or something like that. And you looked at the pavement, and if you see any cracks, you don't hit the cracks with your feet. Yeah, you jump between the cracks, so you don't hit the cracks. So that's a rule. So you come up with a game, and it's so easy, and kids are really, really good at that. And we kind of, because of work of you know, goal-oriented, maximizing your performance, whatever, you kind of get taught out of this innovative thinking, that you keep on thinking how to innovate your work life or your life in general, just that it makes more fun. So it's fun every day to do this, and this is really, really bad, but it's happening. And so yeah, you have the power in you. It's really, really easy. You just have to think about you are drawing 2 parallel lines. You connect the end dots with each line and draw some in between, so you have kind of a ladder, and then you put your like any piece of wood or something like it on the one side, and you it's a start, and the other thing is the end. And then you think about how can you move the piece to the end, to the goal. And you usually know this can work with rolling the die and just counting the numbers. But maybe there are other ways, you know. Maybe to come from one point to the next square, you have to run one loop around the house. And who does it faster is allowed to move. The other one is not allowed to move. So you can come up with all your crazy ideas. You know, you can just take something and throw it anywhere and see if you have a dartboard here, you could see how close you hit to a number, and you use that number instead of rolling the die. There's so many ways. You can have it skill-based. You can have it randomly. You can have puzzle solving between. You know, you always have to solve a puzzle, or we could say you have to tell a joke, and we see how many people laugh, and that's how you move.
I see.
So there's so many ways, and it's just your imagination.
And since you have more than 30 years of experience, what would be your secret ingredients that you're trying to integrate in each one of your games? Is there one secret ingredient that you can tell our audience?
It depends too much on the target group. It's so different, because I could say it's like what you usually try to achieve is a meaningful decision. So you say, okay, I want something, you know, where the player sits in front and he says, I could do this or I could do that. And both ways to continue the game, you know, are viable. There's no dominant strategy that I go, okay, that's easy to decide this. I will do this. No, and then you decide, and that decision has a meaningful consequence. It changes the game. So that would be, for me, would be something to achieve. But it's not always like that. Sometimes you just want to go over the flow, you know. There's no decisions. It's just racing games. There's no, you go. It's really fast processing. And so no, I would say try to find the passion of the target group, try to find out what the target group really wants, what their dream is. You know, everybody has a dream and tries to fulfill it in a fantasy. And usually games are, if they're not very just rule-based puzzle solving constructs mathematically, like chess or games like that, then usually there's some kind of fantasy behind it, you know. Dreaming, I can fly, I can you know, build something that I would love to build a city or something like that. That works. It's a power fantasy also, you know, that works like I would like to see it work, or it's an engineer's dream, and try to fulfill that. Which
is also connected to emotions then somehow, right?
Always.
Yeah. It's
in the end there's always emotions, but it's a different, the narrative to the goal that you have is not attached to, not overall always attached to your primary emotion that you have in the core. It's a bit difficult, but it's you can also just, you know, if you have a game, try to find the big emotion that's on top of it, like being a powerful person, you know, dominating other people. It's what you have in PvP games, where a player plays against other players, and this is really important for young kids. That's why they love to have these first-person shooters, you know, the games where you shoot at the other people, because you can, in a very quick moment, you can dominate other players. It's not so much about dominating the other player and being aggressive. It's more about showing that you are there in the world. Like kids, they want to be recognized, they want to be respected. So they really want to see that they have an impact on the world. So if the world reacts to them, so like if I shoot you and you yell at me that I'm an asshole, this shows me I have a reaction. You know, I did something in this world. There's something happening. So even if it's a bad reaction that I'm getting, it's not a good reaction. In the sense, it's a reaction, and that's great for kids. If they see, that's like very small kids, they throw a glass of water from the table, and they're fascinated that it drops and it spills and it breaks. It's great. And then they do it again, and they do it again, because they don't know if it's going to happen another time. They have not had this experience. So you as a parent, you say, oh, come on, I just told you not to do this again. Yeah, okay, you told me, but I haven't seen it. I want to see if it really is like that. So you do it again. And that's something.
So feedback, basically, huh?
Yeah, it's a very important, that because you're learning, and learning is by repetition. So it's like a scientific experiment. You know, you check this, and if it happens again, and the third time, then your brain gets it together and says, okay, this could be something physical happening here that has to do with our world. So I learned something, and I also learned that the reaction from my parents might not be so good, so I don't do it too often again. But that's what's happening in gaming, and especially young kids, if they play games, it's very important for them to get feedback from the outside world.
Okay. Let's talk about current trends in gaming and upcoming trends in gaming. So what are current trends in the gaming world right now?
Well, we are always moving with technology. It's games usually explore the edges of technology. They love to do that because they are innovative, and if they do something digitally, it's usually if they are combined, interesting things are happening. So what we are seeing right now is that there's new ways of distributing games. So we have the cloud, so you can play on the Xbox, Microsoft. You can play games without downloading them and without owning them. So you have like a Netflix kind of distribution. You just watch the movie, and this is what you do. You just play the game. It's playing somewhere else on a different server, different computer, and I don't know where, somewhere. But the internet connection is fast enough, so I just need a controller and nothing else in the end. Just to, so this is moving forward, and it means also that the game.
So you don't play the game on your local device, but you play it in the cloud.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And this means we're having a big war of publishers for dominating the space. This is one thing. But in games in general, I think what we're seeing, like in the mechanics, what type of games, we're seeing a lot of multiplayer games, because that is something that is technically very, very difficult to do. And now we have fast internet connection between people, so we can connect bigger and bigger numbers of people in the internet, and that's something that's always a trend since this is evolving. The technical trend. We can put players together, so you have big games where there are like 40, 60 or more people in one instance, like on one place, on one spot, and they compete with each other or in teams, something like that. We had a large trend with the escape rooms. You might know them. They're like these riddles, because they got online too, especially now now when we had COVID, preventing us from meeting people at whatever occasions, and to have fun, like going bowling and things like that. Didn't happen. So kind of digital games took over with that. But also we are seeing now a very strong domination in or way exploring the VR space, because it's it's in this phase where it now gets kind of get it under control, and big companies are investing money, because like Meta, the Facebook company, and other big companies are investing money into virtual reality. So we see a big leap there. And we had, or we still have, a quite strong, again, technology playing in, move into the NFT, non-fungible tokens, and blockchain games, which are strong trends right now, but there's a big grain of salt with it, because nobody actually has really found out what to do with these things in gaming. That is really changing the game, that is really necessary for it. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's more of a fancy thing, mm-hmm. and more of a collector's and an investment strategy.
And are there people that play games for a living? Because speaking about esports and big events where people play computer games, what is the kind of trend?
I actually do it. That's because I make games, but I still play them for fun. But yes, there are different trends like that. It's there was one lately discussed a lot in the media, which means earn to play. So you play a game and you make money out of it. It was related to the NFT technology. So people made money while playing games, and they get into a cryptocurrency related, and they have this a lot in the Eastern countries.
Play to earn, or
play to earn.
Play to earn.
Play to earn. So you play and you earn money from this, and it got quite messed up with the decline of the cryptocurrencies. So people lost a lot of money there, and lost basically their income also at this. And if you do this, and it's a fundamental change if you play to earn, because then it gets a job, and then it gets serious. And if it's serious, it's not playing anymore, and it changes everything from the perspective. It's just an activity that you do to make money. It can be enjoyable. Like, I hope your work is fun too for you, at least sometimes, so it can be enjoyable work, but it's not a game. And that's a big difference. And in this case, it's like that. And you have gamers that are playing in esports. It's you have to think much like typical football leagues. You have performance players, like they are really, really good players competing on a totally different level than any other player, they are really, really skill based. It means they have to have the motoric skills. They have to have the knowledge of the game, the deep knowledge of how the game functions, how what type of surroundings the environments is in, what your characters can do, things like that, and have a very fast, usually because it's mostly action oriented games, a very good perception. And they have to train like every other pro sport every day, hours and hours, to keep this up. And they earn money with it because there are so many people watching.
Watching it. So watching other players play a game. Is that a big thing?
If you'd asked me that 20 years ago, I would say no. But it is today. It's a really big thing. There are quite some players out there. They're just having fun. Now, if you listen to me, they're not just having fun because it's a job for them already, some of them, and they're earning easy millions, in the month. So there are like millionaires out there that earn lots and lots of money by playing games on streaming platforms in the internet and just broadcasting basically content. So they are playing games. People like to watch them because they're entertaining when they do this. Either they are very, very good and you just like the performance of someone who's very good at it. It's with any art. And so watching these people play the games is really, really great. Or they are good entertainers, like they are funny doing this. You can laugh about it. So yeah, this is a big trend. It's huge. Amazon tries to make money with games, and the only thing that's making money for them right now in their games division is Twitch, which is the streaming platform for gamers, and they are making tons of money with it. Yes, yeah, but yeah, it's something. It's a definitely interesting trend.
And what would you say, like, how does the gaming world look like in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years?
I don't know. That's the funny thing about games. They are a very, very fast, innovative industry that is redefining itself every year. It's every few years. Like I used to work for a company that browser games, and that's not too long ago. It's 15 years ago, and they were one of the biggest companies in Germany making games with hundreds of millions of players, and they're still making money, but it's like they don't exist anymore. It goes really, really fast. If you think about the big companies like Blizzard, even there, Activision Blizzard, they are in big trouble right now, and because everything changed so fast. So changed so fast gaming to mobile gaming, because the smartphones, there were no smartphones basically that you could play games on before the Apple smartphone came out, and so the first smartphone, and then you found out, oh, it's a great device for playing games. And then we have now the gaming industry. The biggest part of the gaming industry and earning money is the mobile games industry, and it's so cluttered. It's like there's so many players in this. I mean, not just players in sense of gamers, but also who is distributing the games, who's making money with it, who is investing into it. It's a complete change of the industry that happened in the last 10 years or 15 years.
Who's playing it, and mobile games, that brings me to another very interesting point in terms of what would you say, who is playing games?
this is something also that is shocking for many people who haven't who haven't seen themselves as gamers. The average is basically we're right in the middle. It's female around 40 would be the average player, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's so difficult. You can if you see the statistics and the demographics, it's you have a lot of female players, like more than 50% right now, because they're playing all the match 3 games like Kingdom Hearts and Candy Crush Saga or whatever they're called, and on their way, like commuting usually to work. So the old traditional core target group of players where you thought, young males, that's gone. We have many companies right now looking into the silver gamer target group because it's growing so fast. It's people that grew up with the first Nintendo game, something like that, and they're now getting in their 50s like me, and they because they stopped working now or they work less, they are freeing up time, and in the end they don't have now lots of wealth where they would go sailing or travel the world, and many of them have problems with health and have to stay at home quite a lot and can't move around very much, so they don't play golf outside, they play golf on the computer, and it gets more and more realistic. It's sometimes you think it could be the real thing almost, so especially now with the VR games. It's a really interesting word we're tapping into.
So on the one hand, you're saying that female players are very existing now. You spoke about more than 50% of the current players are female, but also like you have a lot of different age groups. What about cultures?
It's the movement of games. They're by far the biggest entertainment industry in the world. So they are bigger, money-wise, bigger than movies, books, and music combined. So there, I would say, worldwide there are no places where there's no gaming. If there's a smartphone, they have access to all the games, and many of them are free to play. So if the people have time, they play games. So that's and it always had been like that. I think no culture had ever not been playing games, because if you play tic-tac-toe in the sand, it doesn't matter. It's just playing games. It's part of the nature of being a human person. But there are cultures where it's difficult with games, because and more cultures of educational cultures. So you find in the modern industry states, you find a target group of people that have been educated not to play games and not to care about games. It's usually elder male groups that want to be very successful in a work environment. They have been taught very, very strictly in the younger age that they are not supposed to be playing games, but work hard. And that's kind of the target groups I see that are most difficult to see the benefits of playing games, and actually that what we can do with games.
What we can do with games brings me to our last last third of our meeting today, of our interview. It's about educational games. So what we can do with games. So one of the things that we can do is educating people, or using, the trend serious games to raising awareness, or teaching people, training people different skills or knowledge, raising awareness on different topics. Do also educational games work in every culture, such just like entertaining games that you were just talking about?
Yes, they do, but there has to be a space for it, and there has to be a mindset for it. I think that's the biggest problem. If you can put in educational games into any society or into any culture, you can sneak it in if you don't call them games. Like that's sometimes the easiest way to do it. If you gamify things without calling them gamification, if you just make things a little bit more easier, you know, it feels better to do them. But it's sometimes in some cultures, it's very, what I talked already a little bit about, if you have, especially managers, you know, that are in charge of companies, it's not a big problem to usually, you know, work with HR and the workers and to make them see that the game can actually educate them and help with the problem. It's most often it's the upper management that has a difficulty with it. So because they are the ones that, like I just said, they are alpha bred people that have been just educated all the time that they don't have time for games. It's all serious what they do, and they don't have the right mindset for it sometimes. But in the end, it's I think you can do a lot of good with games, as there are plenty of examples, and you can solve many problems of humankind or companies or schools if you try to find a way. You know, making games means you are thinking about how to motivate someone to do something intrinsically. That's the best way to do it. So you try to find a way how someone wants to do something. You know, why does he want to do this? So if I'm interested in learning something because I want it, like if I go to a different country and I want to learn the language, then I will be highly intrinsically motivated to learn the language, and then it will be much easier for me to do it. And that's what we are trying to achieve with educational games.
Okay, so I think you convinced me. Perhaps I want to do an educational game or a serious game. What do you need for that? In terms of, like, from the perspective of the project management, like what does it take to create an educational game?
First, you are in the concept phase. So that's basically what you know with all design thinkings and your usual projects. That's somewhere where you get people together to actually define what the problem is and you're going to solve. But this is one of the most important phases, because if you do something wrong in this phase, the project's going to cost you a lot in the end, and it's not going to have the right outcome. So investing there is always a good idea, and that's what I would always start with is a solid concept phase, which means you have to have someone who understands the problem and someone who can think creatively or at least analytically, mostly about how to solve the problem and how to, you know, how a game structure could be implemented. So this is actually it's the cheapest phase of making games. Educational games, entertainment games, doesn't matter. It's the cheapest phase because there are not that many people involved. And then it depends a lot on what your outcome is of this phase. If you find out you're going to have like a printed book to have people, you know, to educate people to do something, if that's the medium, then it might be not so expensive. Then you are going to, you know, you need a writer, you need maybe an artist, and you need to print the books in the end. So your project budget is very much related to printing books. So you have to take a look at how much is usually budget for printing books. If your game is going to be about having people run around in the city on a treasure hunt, it's totally different. You have to find out, okay, are they allowed to run through the city, or what are they carrying with them? Do they take their private smartphones? Is that enough? Do we have one app, or is it enough if they have Google Maps already installed, and you can give them some kind of just some kind of cards, or maybe just a web page that you have to do to give them the rules. If you want to make an app that actually works on your smartphone, and if you want to have a real game, then you have to have programmers. Having programmers is, right now, everybody wants to make software. So programmers is difficult to get. So usually you will have to work with a company making software anyway, someone who makes games. And they have to be in a position where they want to work for you, basically, investing their time doing this project. And this means your budget has to be like making software, any software right now. And software is expensive, always. So if you think about having an app, the average starting point, I would say, would be maybe a budget of 50,000 to just, have a really, really, really small app. And then you are not developing maybe not in Germany, but you're developing in Africa, or another country where the program is not that expensive. But games today, I mean, the big games have budgets that are 250 to 500 million dollars or euros, and you have to think about that when you think about games. You cannot have the same experience as these big games are for 100,000. It's impossible. So usually it depends a lot on the budget. I haven't rarely seen any educational games that are, that have higher budgets than like $1 million. Usually they're somewhere ending at 300,000, something like that, and that's what you have to spend in the end for making a game, if it's digital, on any kind of platform.
And how long would it take me to do it if I have the budget?
So that's quite easy to calculate. If you just calculate the number of people getting money, and then you see their salaries, and then you'll see how much it takes. So if you have a budget of 250,000 or 200,000, then usually this will take you something, depends on how big the team is, but if it's like 3-4 people, 5 people maximum, you'll have something between half a year or a year until the software is done. So I would always try to calculate as much time as you can for the concept phase, because of the reasons I told you before. If you do something wrong and it's really bad, and it's I think the most important phase of any product development, and it's cheap. It's the cheapest phase. So yes, if there's the difference for the concept phase between 20 and 30,000, but the 10,000 euro more would give you like 3 more months to work on the concept, I would always do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds like a big investment. And what is the impact of it? How can we prove and how can we measure the impact of a game?
It's very difficult. It's like because we're having these soft factors. Usually, you can the only way, what we're doing is we're changing behavior with educational games. You try to teach someone something. We're not teaching them knowledge, because that's simple. So we don't do it with games. We want to teach different behaviors, and to do that, and everybody knows who's in this business knows changing behavior is one of the most difficult things that you can do. And so if you want to change that, the only way to measure it in the end would be a survey, to find out and to track it, to see if there's behavioral change. We can do that sometimes with the games, or depends on if they keep on using, or if they keep on using specific software, because software is trackable very well. So you could say in this company X, we can track later on how many people are actually using stairs instead of elevators for the next year to come, and to see if that changed the behavior because of the game we installed. We can track that, but often it's more like it's a blind shot where you say, okay, how do you track if our educational system, the schools that we have, if they are actually better suited the way they are right now, and if they're different. There are different school forms. Do you measure it on how many people get into universities out of the different school systems? I don't know. It's a very difficult way to judge an educational system on because maybe people coming from schools that are not having a university career behind it still produce the right thing you want to teach people. Maybe they are more kind or they are more social. You don't know. It's really difficult to measure. You really have to find out. That's also something you have to do in the concept phase, in the beginning of a project. It's really, really important to state your goal. What do you want to achieve and how you want to measure it? It's one of the most important things, because someone is who's giving the money for this project, wants to see a result in the end. And it's really, really important that you talk to the someone on how we can measure it in the end. So he says, okay, that has been a success or not. Because if it's in the end, if it's, oh yeah, it could have been, maybe it had, yeah, maybe we had a positive outcome. I don't know. Maybe we don't. It's something where you say, okay, this person is not going to invest any more into games. If you have something like the game Folded or Quantum Moves, serious games where you're trying to fold proteins to more efficiently state. That can be done by computers, can be done by people, just by solving a puzzle. It's like a computer, like a typical puzzle game. And we know that like these games have been highly, highly efficient and very, very, they are very easy to measure, because we see how good the results are from just a data point of view. And we know exactly how well they have done because of players, being outperforming computers easily. And in areas where we wouldn't have thought it. So it's something where you can measure it. Try to find out what's the measurement before you make the game.
So yeah, keeping in mind the key performance indicators, or what you want to achieve, what is the impact that you want to measure already in the design phase. Okay. One last question is the following. Why do you personally love games?
I guess it's just so much fun to imagine things that are not real. I've started, I think, what brought me into games, making games, was me playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was 12 years old, and I was killed by a giant ant, even though I had a sword to defend myself. And this was something I've never heard of before, only in stories, but I've never had it as a real action. I was fighting, and I was only knowing Monopoly and Risk and games like that. And so this game taught me that there's a whole new world to explore in games. And I think what happened to me when I was 12, I'm still searching for that, to find a game that's going to open up a new world, that's going to open up a new world for other people, for myself. And with every game I play, I either challenge myself. That's something I also like to do. So I really enjoy playing games because I challenge myself, but also because of, in multiplayer games mostly, where you meet people, you have no idea what's going to happen. And I've met so many good friends doing this, and I had catastrophic outcomes with people that yelled at me, and were shouting bad words, and me too. And it's also, it's a kind of a loss of control without drugs, I guess. If you are in a game and you're yourself, you're just you're not controlling yourself in this moment, but you're more yourself than in any other environment. And I like being myself. actually. So that's why I like playing games, I guess.
All right, what a wonderful last statement. So it was great to have you. Thank you so much for all your insights, sharing your experience with us, and all, you know, not only talking about like what is gaming, what are the different elements of the game, what are the components, what is the core game loop of a game, about like the games on the one hand, but also you shared your insights on the current trends. So what are we currently facing in right now, you know, 2021, but what will we also probably facing in the upcoming years? And then also talking about educational games, and you shared your experiences there, what is needed in order to really realize a game from the very scratch, from the very beginning to the end. And specifically, I loved why you love games. Yeah, being yourself. Yeah, I think that is a wonderful last statement. Again, thank you so much for being here with us, Volker. And yeah, I would say, any final words from your side?
Thank you, Philip. I wish you all a great journey you're doing, and that you find your treasure in the end.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and
Bye-bye.
see you soon. Bye-bye.